Hello, and welcome to part of the Breg Lecture Series. I'd like to thank the kind people at Breg for putting on this lecture to educate the public on these important financial issues. The topic I'd like to unpack today concerns the regulation of banking. Really, the question is, should more stringent regulations be placed on the banking system by Congress? First of all, what are we even talking about when we speak of regulating the banking system? And do we even need more regulation right now? And who should impose these regulations? We will address all these questions and more this afternoon. So, what do we even mean by regulation? Well, regulations in the banking world are just limits and standards established to prevent abuses and keep the economy healthy. Since 2008, there's been a lot of talk of regulation, but only some has been passed. One amendment to the Fed's banking regulation is in the Unfair or Deceptive Acts or Practices section, changed in July of this year for the purpose of prohibiting institutions from engaging in certain acts or practices in connection with consumer credit card accounts. Also, the Reserve Requirements of Depository Institutions regulation has been amended several times in the last couple of years. These amendments have created interest-earning accounts for various non-bank financial institutions that function like a bank's normal Federal Reserve account. Now, I think that most people would agree that there's some need for oversight when humans and money are involved. So the question is not if we should regulate, but in what circumstances. So, why might we need regulation right now? Well, perhaps the most recent example is the 2008 financial crisis, when the government had to bail out several large companies and also took over, under the auspices of the FDIC, 25 failing banks. This crisis had many causes, but some of the major issues involved were predatory lending, advertising low rates and then changing them without warning, the short selling of stocks, which is making money by speculating that a stock will lose value, and lending institutions not having sufficiently liquid assets. An effort to prevent the behavior that caused the 2008 financial crisis is being made with legislation like I mentioned. But since the beginning of this year, 150 banks have failed. If there's ever a time for banking reform, this is it. Okay, so we need regulation, but who should do it? There are a number of entities that could regulate our banks. Congress could do it, or there are the institutions that they created to handle finance, the FDIC and the Federal Reserve. The FDIC, in its mission statement, says that one of its goals is examining and supervising financial institutions for safety and soundness and consumer protection. Similarly, in the Federal Reserve System's mission statement, they say that one of their goals is supervising and regulating banking institutions to ensure the safety and soundness of the nation's banking and financial system and to protect the credit rights of consumers. In the case of the Fed, it was created to be relatively autonomous as well. They don't need to ask Congress for money or permission to carry out their duties. The terms of its Board of Governors last for 14 years as opposed to a single term in the House of Representatives, which is 2 years, and thus they are relatively free from petty politics and knee-jerk legislation. So should Congress enact more stringent regulations on the banking system? I believe that unless the regulation in question is beyond the power of the child agencies, Congress should leave regulation to the professionals in the FDIC and Federal Reserve.